Today we're going to have a meeting about the war that is going on in the Middle East. And all of you have been listening to the news, current events, and thinking about it. So I'd like to start the discussion by asking you what you already know about the war. Would anybody like to start?
We've been bombing quite a lot at night, and about 80% has been, we've been aiming at something and not just bombing it anywhere. We've been aiming at a certain place. 80% of the bombing has been done like at missile sites.
Saddam Hussein wants the coast of Kuwait because he can get a lot of ships out from Kuwait.
Some of the oil that we get is from Kuwait, and we want to live in luxury, so we're fighting for the oil.
From what I hear, it's like both of them really just wanted to go to war. Both countries just wanted to go to war.
Saddam Hussein was like starting war with Kuwait, and nobody wants a war, well, not everybody. And the U.S. thought that there would be an easier way to solve it. That's why we had like 4 months discussion of what to do.
Lucy Mann teaches the 4th grade at PS 87.
Lucy, I'm told that this is the 3rd such session you've conducted on concerns about the war and discussion about the war. Obviously, you feel it's necessary. Why?
Well, the morning after the children heard that there was war, when I came to pick them up in the yard, there was a tremendous sense of anxiety, a lot of children asking questions about it, a lot of excitement about it, wanting to make sure that I knew it was happening. And my sense was that they needed to talk to each other and find out, get a sense of what was going on.
And have you observed any change in behavior or lessening of anxiety since these talks have gone on?
I think it always helps children to talk about whatever's going on. And when they hear each other's concerns, they are often very supportive of each other, particularly in a classroom where we spend a lot of time learning to cooperate and learning to care about each other. So that the opportunity to discuss something in a meeting gives you the opportunity to understand that somebody else is going through the same thing. And then you can, relax a little bit and share your worries or whatever. And it does calm kids down.
Is there a typical question or a typical manifestation of fears or concern about the war that you've noticed?
I've heard much about nightmares. A higher sense of energy or anxiety. Some of the children got stomach aches, headaches, that kind of thing, a sort of general anxiety in the body somewhere. So that comes up quite a bit.
My stomach just did a somersault when I just heard the word started.
So you felt it in your stomach, anxiety kind of. Rebecca, what happens to you?
Well, sometimes at night when I'm trying to fall asleep, I can't stop thinking about it. And it just feels like you are getting killed because it's part of your country.
Mm.
Mrs. Naomi Hill is the principal at PS 87.
Mrs. Hill, as principal of the school, I'm sure you've been getting a lot of telephone calls from parents. What kinds of calls are you getting? In other words, what do the parents expect of the school during this crisis?
There hasn't been any clear message as to what parents expect. The calls I've been getting are more of anxiety, of talking things over, of wondering how we see things, of advice seeking, what to do, how much to do it. As a matter of fact, I approached the Parents Association recently, and we're going to be meeting together to see if we should have a school-wide policy. And the staff will be meeting this afternoon for the same purpose.
Dr. Boulder, what are some of the special fears and concerns that plague children during wartime?
I think first and foremost, kids are concerned about what's going to happen to them. You know, they are concerned about loved ones, but mainly who's going to take care of me if something happens. And surprisingly, children even as old as 9 and 10 are afraid something's going to happen here to them. So kids I've spoken to have talked about perhaps somebody's going to poison our water, what happens if someone plants a bomb here and blows me up. So they have some very concrete and literal sorts of fears that the soldiers are going to be marching down the streets here. Things that may or may not happen are of concern to them.
Has the war coverage on television affected children more, do you think, than at other times, or more than it would have had there simply been intermittent rather than constant coverage?
I think the constant bombardment on TV of all those images of war does really heighten children's concerns. You know, after all, they're used to watching their cartoons in the morning, even the very small children, and now they're being interrupted, being preempted by news reports, day and night. Kids are watching these things. They're seeing gas masks being put on little children being pushed off into a corner of a room in a special kind of a contraption so they don't get poisoned. I mean, these are very frightening kinds of images.
Dr. Boulder, as you know, the networks are doing special programs aimed at children to explain the war to them, to calm some of their fears. Is this a good idea or not so good idea?
Well, I know some people are saying that maybe we shouldn't make so much of informing our kids about the war. But the fact is that kids are exposed to little bits and pieces of it, and they are made anxious by it, and they hear their parents talking about it, and they hear other kids talking about it, so they are nervous about it. So I do think really that it's important to bring as much information to them as we can in the schools as well as on TV. And so I think that if there's an opportunity to use the television medium, since we're bringing stories of the news, the news of the war anyway, I think using the television medium to inform the kids in a way that they can understand it is very useful.
I think it's a good idea to limit children to programs that are geared for them and that take in their developmental level, and the fact that while we want to tell children the truth, we should not overwhelm them with anxiety and fear. I think this unlimited TV watching we've all been doing as adults, glued to the set, sometimes for 12 or more hours a day, is overwhelming for children.
I think there are a number of things you have to do as a parent, and a teacher for that matter, to help kids. First of all, it's important to help the kids talk about what they're afraid of if they're not apt to do that themselves. And many kids are not going to tell what their fears are. They don't want to reveal them. Another thing, in school particularly, and you can do this at home, is use a map or use a globe and show kids where this military action is occurring to reduce some of their concerns about it's happening right here. They can certainly write letters to the servicemen and women who are fighting, so they show their support. If they're against it, they can write letters to the president. They can actually do things so that they feel they're making a contribution. And if kids play war, which they're apt to do, parents shouldn't become overly concerned or alarmed about it. Kids use their play to work out the things that bother them. So you see kids playing at war, you can point out to them that aggression is really the last resort in trying to solve problems, and there are other ways to solve problems, but don't get all that terribly alarmed. By the way, parents can also use this opportunity to talk about things like negotiating and compromising, and when you should not fight, and when you have to stand up for your rights. Another point I want to make is that as much as you do, and I think you should do a lot, you really can't totally reassure a child and get a child not to worry at all, because some of their fears, unfortunately, are valid. What I want to make is that as much as you do, and I think you should do a lot, you really can't totally reassure a child and get a child not to worry at all, because some of their fears, unfortunately, are valid.